if people sit down and take a bit more time, particularly with Indigenous peoples in that area, and take a bit more time of absorbing the spirituality of it, that they will find there's a lot more in Uluru and Karachuta than just big stones coming out of the ground. The people who really know the essence and the spirituality about Uluru are those who are a part of it, those who are living there.
When you look out there, what you quite often can see is the desert, you know. But that's where I lived as a child, up till I was about 6 years of age. And you may think, you know, that person would have difficulty surviving here, but this is where I lived as a kid, and like hundreds of other kids like myself. We all grew up quite well there. Well, I know.
The greatest jobs that Indigenous peoples can actually have is working in their countries doing something that they enjoy. One of these areas where employment in your own country is possible is the harvesting of sandalwood. Sandalwood grows in the desert. It's been there for thousands and thousands of years. And Indigenous peoples, my people as well as many, many other peoples, have used sandalwood in ceremony. Sandalwood is an industry. It is such an industry that it can sustain a whole town, a whole community. You hop into a car and you drive for 5 hours. So you're slowly, in your own terms, going further and further and further away from what you see as civilization, but actually going back to the heart of civilization. You'd find that when you go to these little community towns and you pull into Wiluna, you look around, it's one street, and you think, how could people live out here? This is in the middle of nowhere. But the middle of nowhere to them is really the middle of somewhere. And one of these people in Wiluna is Kenny Farmer. And he's been working in sandalwood for many, many years.
Maybe 100.
He cuts it, harvests it, and ships it out. So you have the respect for the trees that you're actually cutting down, but you respectfully know that more trees can be grown. So that sustainability plan is the most important part of having Indigenous people involved, because it is part of our culture. And I think it's very important that people like Aveda get to see people like Kenny Farmer firsthand and get to know them, not as the Indigenous person who's supplying all this sandalwood, but as a business partner.
To work in balance with this world, we all have to walk side by side.
That's right.
And the beauty...
That every
yes.
night. Not the black man, it's not the white man or the Chinese.
But good business is where all parties win. It's where the Indigenous peoples can actually say, well, I am getting paid a fair amount of money for a fair day's work and fair delivery. And you can also see that this business has got a future. The core vision of Aveda and the cultural practice of Indigenous peoples are parallel. Then we as a team, the Indigenous peoples and Aveda, can join forces to turn that into good business to the rest of the world. Sandalwood's not used for making bombs. It's not used for spreading diseases to other places. Sandalwood's used to bring people pleasure. And that's what sandalwood can do to small communities. It can actually strengthen the community by strengthening individuals, strengthening families, giving them an economic base, and knowing that what they're working in is something that is sustainable.
Because we're in a terrible situation. And even today, things aren't working. That was yesterday I'm talking about. I'm not talking about years ago, 10 years ago. I'm talking about yesterday. You know what I mean? That's where we are. Question is, what am I going to do about it?
Free to see we're blind. Yeah, we're blind. Yeah, we're blind. Sensitivity till it's broken. Adrenaline till it's gone. Passion lost sparkle. Sparkle turn to fade.
You find a lot out about yourself. And you find that we as people in this wonderful planet we have far more in common than we have a difference.
I'm hoping that I reach you deep inside.
If people sit down and take a bit more time, particularly with Indigenous peoples in that area, and take a bit more time of absorbing the spirituality of it, that they'll find there's a lot more in Uluru and Karachuta than just big stones coming out of the ground.
All rise, all rise, all rise. Free to see we're blind.